Oh, hi there. Welcome to A Show in the Woods, a show with a deadbeat host and a cameraman that's a ghost. I'm Alex Kaiser. You'll be seeing my face for a while now. Let's start things off by unscrambling the verbal shenanigans that went down in the last episode. I guess farewell and incoming transmission. Ooh, I see front Ragman snafu. Wow! Let's see that answer. Oh God. All right. Well, anyway, we got that done and over with. And up next, I'm going to roll through my Rolodex and find someone to interview. So if you excuse me, I got to get some equipment. I'll be back soon. Well, hello, Mac.
Hello.
Well, obviously I know you, but I'm not 100% sure the rest of the audience does. So, could you, fill them in a little bit about, who is Mack Shaffer?
Yeah, sure. Well, my name is Mack Shaffer. I live in Milwaukee. I also co-host the podcast Time to Adapt on the Zima Podcasting Network. It's a podcast where we talk about book-to-film adaptations of movies and television shows and discuss the really good ones, the really bad ones, and the really ugly ones.
Hey, so give us the details. How did this podcast get rolling, huh?
My co-host and I, her name is Selena Allen. We've been friends since we both came to Milwaukee back in 2014. We kind of bonded over our mutual love of Shakespeare and Shakespearean film adaptations. So we ended up finding that a lot of time we would be talking about either Shakespeare or Stephen King adaptations. And about 3 years ago, I had an idea to have a podcast where I just talk about Stephen King movies and talk about all of them, ranging from the really good ones, such as The Shining and It, and some of the more bizarre, obscure, and sometimes really terrible ones, like Cell and Langoliers, and even Pet Cemetery. So that was the original idea, but I realized that it's kind of as much as I love it, it's kind of a niche thing. So we thought, let's expand it to just all books to film adaptations. And then Selena wanted to get on board for that. So I pitched it to my producer, Mr. Graham Zima, and he loved the idea. And he said, okay, let's do it. So we started in September of 2017. Our first episode was on It. And from there, we've been doing this for just over 2 years now. And so it's going pretty well.
So, I see you've got quite the catalog of episodes. Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, that would probably be the episode where we talk about the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. One of the things I wasn't expecting about doing this podcast was that I'd be revisiting some of the movies and comics that I loved as a kid with fresh eyes and kind of a newer approach to it all. And with League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, I came to a horrific realization that the comic was very, very different from the Hollywood movie, and the movie is really not good. And that really hurt my 11-year-old self, but it also opened me up to realizing how Hollywood makes movies. And that's something that I didn't expect about the podcast, was I was able to do a lot of research and see how these movies get made and how things get translated from the graphic novel or the book, and how sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
So, hey, you got a co-host, Selena. How do you make the teamwork dream work?
We both read the book or the comic, and then we sit down together and we watch whatever movie version we watch. From there, we have like a Google Doc where we add things to it, and occasionally bring up questions that we want to talk about during the episode. And when we record the episode, we use that Google Doc as like a table of contents for us. And we just sit down and we talk about it. Sometimes it depends on, one of us will have to carry the episode more than the other, depending on what it is we're talking about. Because, like, the episode that we talked about, Good Omens, which was one of Selena's favorite episodes, she was the one who kind of carried that more. And that's because I had just finished the graphic novel, had just watched the Amazon miniseries, but didn't have a lot of time to add anything to the discussion. But we still make it work, and occasionally we'll have like little tidbits on our Google Doc that'll like discuss like good like talking points that I can bring up for her, that kind of stuff.
So, Time to Adapt is a part of the Zima Podcast Network. How does all that work? And if it's a network, is there any other shows or any other podcasts, maybe people should listen to?
It's actually a very fascinating network because the content is, there's so much content both in shows that are currently running and shows that we no longer have on the network. It's fascinating tidbits from different people. We have like one of the more popular ones is Monsters at Midnight, which is run by Mack Shaffer and Joel Dormandy, where they talk about horror movies, news, true crime, and it's a lot of fun. And they also, they don't just do it in the podcast isn't the only thing they do together. They host, movie trivia nights at a local bar down here in Milwaukee called Sabbatic on, Monday nights. There's also Women Behind the Camera, which is a podcast run by some female filmmakers, and they sit down with some really fascinating people from the Milwaukee film area, and they range from students who have just graduated all the way to some more bigger names in the Milwaukee film community, and it's very fascinating.
All right, hear that? Listen in, tune in. Oh, and by the way, where can people catch Time to Adapt and maybe all these other podcasts?
We have a website, the Zima Podcasting Network. There's also, all of our episodes are available on Spotify, on Apple Music. It's almost every podcasting platform that's available. We have some version of the show readily available for you.
Well, thank you, Mac. It's been a pleasure.
Good talking to you, Glenn. I'll talk to you later.
All right, today we're going to be doing something new. And when I mean new, I really mean old. Because we are going to be reading, or at least I will be reading, a passage from one of my older journals. This current passage is dated September 20th, 2009. Let me begin. Today, I cut my finger. It's not a total amputation of my pinky finger, but it's a deep cut though. It happened when I was carving my name and the title Nazi Killer onto a stick with a pocket knife. When I got to the Z in Nazi, the knife folded on my pinky finger. Ow! At first, it didn't bleed, but after a few seconds, the wound started to gush out blood. I started to wash out the wound in water, but it just kept bleeding. I didn't want to go to my parents because they would give a lecture on my stupidity, especially my dad, who thinks I should always know better because I'm a Boy Scout. But I decided it was necessary to pay the price of a lecture from my parents for a Band-Aid. Whew, such bloodshed. Good thing I was nowhere near an ocean, otherwise I would have been toast. But it's good to be prepared anyway, so let's move on to some shark identification. Now what is this shark? A, is it the boomer shark? B, the megamouth? C, the gummy shark? That there is a megamouth, and if you care to hear, I'm going to tell you some megamouth facts. The megamouth was first discovered by the U.S. Navy in 1976, the bicentennial. Oh boy, boy, boy. All right, and let me tell you, this is a big shark. Plenty to go around, folks. It weighs at over a fully grown megamouth, 1,500 pounds. That's a big honking shark. And its length, 16 feet. By golly, oh my God, that is a long ass shark. All right, and let me tell you, they don't call it megamouth for nothing. That mouth is 3 feet wide. Holy crap! Holy crap! Woo! Identify this shark. Is it A, the goblin shark? B, the knife shark? C, the left shark? That right there is the goblin shark, and it was first discovered by scientists off the coast of Japan in the year 1898. And like its name suggests, the goblin shark lives in the bowels of the earth like some frickin' J.R.R. Tolkien monster I'm talking about here. It lives 530 feet below the surface of the water. That's just crazy. Like, I'd get crushed if I was 530 feet below the surface of anything. Like, whoa, these are goblin sharks, man. Goblin sharks. What is this shark? Is it A, baby shark, B, Goliath shark, or C, the lantern shark? That little cutie pie is called the lantern shark, and that is one of the smallest sharks in the world. It can grow up to 8 inches, or I don't know if that's the right length, but you know what I mean. And they call it the lantern shark because it glows in the dark. Now, whoa, isn't that something? But anyway, that's all the sharks I have for you for today. So let's move from the sea to the stars and talk about your latest horoscopes. Aries, the only small stuff you should be sweating is sweat. Taurus, sometimes you gotta volunteer before you're voluntold. Gemini, be aware, some shortcuts have an edge. Cancer, perhaps a change in lighting will produce some revelations. Leo, be careful in your next public free association process. Virgo, you will benefit by sharing some of your knowledge. Libra, note what you had for breakfast today. It will be important 2 days from now. Scorpio, at this moment, a rest in the west is best. Sagittarius, you will find a brick wall that is weaker than it looks. Capricorn, you will find a reputation doesn't always match with reality. Aquarius, there will be a tussle before you cross the next street. Pisces, you'll learn a new joke. Okay, hear me out here. Here's something else to ponder. What exactly is the Dickensian aspect? Well, let's try to find out by reading some Oliver Twist. Oliver, being left to himself in the undertaker's shop, set the lamp down on a workman's bench and gazed timidly about him with a feeling of awe and dread, which many people a good deal older than he will be at no loss to understand. An unfinished coffin on black trestles, which stood in the middle of the shop, looked so gloomy and death-like that a cold tremble came over him. Every time his eyes wandered in the direction of the dismal object, from which he almost expected to see some frightful form slowly rear its head to drive him mad with terror. Against the wall were ranged in a regular array a long row of elm boards cut into the same shape, looking in the dim light like high-shouldered ghosts with their hands in their breech pockets. Coffin plates, elm chips, bright-headed nails, and shreds of black cloth lay scattered on the floor, and the wall behind the counter was ornamented with a lively representation of two mutes in a very stiff neckcloths on duty at a large private door, with a hearse drawn up by 4 black steeds. Nay! Approaching in the distance, the shop was close and hot. The atmosphere seemed tainted with the smell of coffins. The recess beneath the counter in which his flock mattress was thrust, looked like a grave. Nor were these the only dismal feelings which depressed Oliver. He was alone in a very strange place, and we all know how chill and desolate the best of us will sometimes feel in such a situation. The boy had no friends to care for, or to care for him. The regret of no recent separation was fresh in his mind. The absence of no loved and well-remembered face sank heavily into his heart. But his heart was heavy, notwithstanding, and he wished, as he crept into his narrow bed, that were his coffin, and that he could be laid in a calm and lasting sleep in the churchyard ground, with the tall grass waving gently above his head, and the sound of the old deep bell to soothe him into sleep. Congratulations! You just finished watching an episode of A Show in the Woods. What an achievement! You should tell all your friends about that. I'm sure they'll be very impressed. Now, as a reward from me, I shall tell you an anagram. Await, hit aisle.